Well, a warm welcome to today's talk, Monday the 6th of March. Now, I'm going to give some information about the leaks from the British Secretary of State for Health, Matt Hancock, because I don't be denied about this, but I actually think it's in the public interest to look at some of this material, if nothing else that we need to learn for the next pandemic, which will inevitably come, or other public health crises, which inevitably will come as well. Now, this is based on this book here. Now, Matt Hancock, Secretary of State for Health, he rushed out a book, and I think rushed out is the only way to describe it. And he's called it, what's it called? Pandemic Diaries, the battle inside Britain's battle against COVID with Isabel Oakeshott. Now, Isabel Oakeshott is the co-writer of this book. And at the end of the process, or after the end of the process, the book was written. Isabel Oakeshott decided it was in the public interest to release this material, so she did release the material that she'd been given to research the book. So that's the background to this, and I've only picked a few examples because it does give us an insight into what was going on. And I think a lot of us feel great frustration, regardless of what side the pond you happen to be on. Of leadership during the pandemic was very often really, in my view, quite appalling. Some might say misleading and disingenuous. But let's not always. Of course, there was good leaders, but generally, I've got this tremendous feeling of being let down by the information I was given, by the information I was not given, by the way that the information was filtered to me, because all we had at the time was what was in the public domain. I have no special insight. And part of the reason he decided to do this was Matt Hancock did. He had access to all of the information. So while we maybe have all thought and done things where we get in the pandemic, that was done on partial information, whereas these guys at the top had all the information. So anyway, let's crack on. This first one here, Matt Hancock plans to frighten the pants off everyone. Now, and this is a direct quote. He did say that, frighten the pants off people. So was fear used as a deliberate manipulative strategy in the pandemic? If so, that would really concern me, because we want to be able to give people objective information. I often got things wrong, but I was trying to give, I still do get things wrong, but I try to give objective information as much as I can based on the information at my disposal. Whereas, as I said, these guys had a lot more information available. So Matt Hancock plans to frighten the pants off everyone about COVID. How the Health Secretary hoped to shock public into complying with ever-changing lockdown rules is the headline. Now, this is basically the leak of these exchanges. So, Secretary of State for Health, have you seen the Daze survey? Now, this was the Imperial College London React study, which was actually showing that things were getting quite a bit better at the time. But did that quite fit the narrative? So, Patrick Vallance, Chief Scientific Officer, said he'd take a look at it. Matt Hancock, just done presser, presumably a press release, where the media interest was only on the gloomy Cambridge survey. But if you want people to behave themselves, maybe that's not a bad thing. So focusing on a gloomy survey with increasing cases, because at the time it was very localised, wasn't it? There'd be increasing cases in one part of the country and not in another part of the country. And then the chief scientific officer actually says this: agree, suck up their miserable interpretations and over-deliver. Is over-deliver another way of saying don't give the truth objectively? You can interpret that with whatever word you would like to use, but that's what he said. That's the direct quote there. Suck up their miserable interpretations and over-deliver. Does this over-delivery veer into things which are untrue? Well, one would certainly hope not. This is the chief scientific officer we're talking about, the one who worked for GlaxoSmithKline and cashed in quite a few shares from GlaxoSmithKline during the pandemic. Not that I'd influenced him at all. Questions to answer here, isn't there? Really questions to answer. okay, these are just they're just WhatsApp messages, and of course, needless to say, they didn't expect these to come into the public domain. So, have I made quick messages that could be taken out of context? Yes, but the point is, this story is developing into a bit of a theme. And then again, sounds like so. This is the mayor of Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London. This is the mayor of Manchester, who pushed back on the lockdowns. And this Damien Poole, Department of Health Media Special Advisor. Tory MPs are furious about the lockdown. Matt Hancock, we frighten the pants off everyone with the new strain. They didn't want Brexit to take priority. So was fear being used as a deliberate strategy there? Disproportionate fear? That could be argued. It's not really what we would expect. I mean, I'm not at all criticising the casual language here. I mean, this is the language, I don't know what you'd say in the States, but to frighten the pants off someone is a standard saying in the UK. I'm not knocking that because he thought he was just talking amongst friends or amongst colleagues. It's the sentiment that we're interested in. Then this is really strange. Matt Hancock, when do we deploy the new variant? Now, this was at the time when the alpha variant was coming to prevalence. So when did we deploy the variant? Now, of course, we're not saying that Matt Hancock was somehow in control of the variant. Presumably, what he meant was, when do we deploy the information about the new variant? Well, I would have thought as early and as transparently as possible would be the answer, and allow the public to make informed adult decisions. But it seemed to be deployed in a strategic way, arguably. As you see, these are open to interpretation. So this is Damien Poole, been thinking about the new. He's talking about the new variant, and of course, the alpha variant was quite bad. I think you made the point earlier. We need to keep schools off. So Matt Hancock agreeing that schools needed to be remain closed down. Damien Poole didn't want anyone leaking from the senior ranks. And he said, big risk with the variant. Right-wing papers go for a renewed push for let it rip. So that, in other words, don't try and control the spread of the virus. On the basis of the vaccine strategy is undermined. Matt Hancock, that's why we reassure on the vaccines. So Matt Hancock, clearly very pro-vaccination. What additional information did he have about possible adverse effects of the vaccines at the time? Don't really know, but seems from that to me they didn't want anything to get in the way of the vaccination program. That seemed to be a priority. And of all the WhatsApp messages that have been released that I've seen, it would be interesting to know about this when we get the full analysis, is I haven't seen natural immunity mentioned once. Vaccines, yes. Natural immunity, this wonderful mechanism we all have, I haven't seen a mention of it yet. Maybe the full analysis will prove me wrong that they were talking about it all the time, but I suspect not. How Matt Hancock sought to hog the COVID vaccine limelight. So was this vaccination program seen as some particular political win on the part of the Secretary of State for Health? This is what this seems to imply. Wanted the credit for the vaccination program. Front pages on vaccines are unreal. You are totally right. I must own this. So he wants to own the vaccination program. Strangely enough, we haven't heard anything from him lately on the vaccination program that I've heard, talking about potential adverse events of vaccination and the limited efficacy of vaccination. Maybe he only wanted to own it for a period of time. I need to meet the scientist who is at the same Oxford College I was. In the UK, we call this the old boys network. It stinks, you know. Mates from college, old school tie old boy. No. Anyway, that seems to be what he wanted to do. They will forgive you for being in favour of lockdowns if they think you're working night and day for a vaccine. So this belief that vaccination was the only way out, which was fed down to all of us, where's the counter-argument here? There doesn't seem to be any obvious counter-argument. Anyway, vaccine approval is finally cut from 20 days to 5 days. And now this is concerning. Medicines and Healthcare Regulatory Authority briefing is pretty sure. I hope there's no intimation here that the vaccine approval strategies were somehow curtailed. Let's hope that's not the case, because we were completely assured that everything was done as it normally would be for any new pharmaceutical product. Let's hope this is not undermining the veracity of that. Vaccine approval is finally cut from 20 days to 5. Okay, these are just notes. It is sometimes hard to know what they mean, but I don't like the sound of cutting vaccine approval in the light of what we now know. But isn't that good news? Is it true? I believe it's true. At last, a turbo booster for jabs, so that's in tomorrow's. So that was in the newspaper at the time. Matt Hancock, I called for this 2 months ago. This is a Hancock triumph. And if it is, we need to accelerate massively. So good old Matt Hancock, eh? Triumphed it. Triumphed. Anyway, just the last example. I mean, we could give lots, but this is the last one I'm going to give here. No, a couple more maybe. Matt Hancock chose saving face over ending unnecessary pingdemic. Now, the pingdemic, of course, was people being alerted on the phone that they had to self-isolate. And Matt Hancock was told that he was overcooking this one, but ignored it because he didn't want to appear wrong for the past. And I just wonder how many things that the government is still plugging now, governments around the world are still plugging now, because if they change their mind now, they would have to admit they'd been wrong in the past. How many things are being done now because governments don't want to admit they were wrong in the past? Of course, we don't know that now, but let's have a look at this pingdemic. 600,000 pinged a week at some stage, resulted in more than 20 million people that's a third of the population in the UK, being told to self-isolate, regardless of whether they had symptoms, for 14 days. At that time, it also included travellers, and it was another month until the quarantine period for being pinged was taken down to 10 days. And the scheme wasn't scrapped up until February 2022. Quite incredible, really. Now, the relevant exchange here is this. So, Matt Hancock, where are we on test to release date? And this is Chris Whitty, a physician, like the chief scientific officer. They're actually both physicians, Patrick Vallance, chief medical officers and special advisory group for emergencies, in favour of a pilot with presumption in favour of testing for 5 days in lieu of isolation. So testing for 5 days in lieu of isolation, alternative to 10 days isolation, but of course it was 14. So here we've got the chief medical officer saying, well, let's go for 5 days of testing rather than 14 days of isolation. And at the time, we were told that they were following the science. So Matt Hancock says, test every day just for 5 days. That sounds like a massive loosening. Chris Whitty says that's what the modelling suggests. And Max says, I'm amazed, that sounds very risky and we can't go backwards. Wouldn't test every day for 10 days be a safer starting point. So, and then the conversation goes on. So rather than following the science, he's arguing about it, looking like for the sake of political expediency. We're not, the government's not looking good out of this, and as indeed are many of these others involved. This one's amusing or not? I'll tell you it straight. Let me tell you. Bill Gates, new variant assessment platform. So this was the government. In the UK, we've got some labs that are very good at looking for new variants, and we wanted to roll this out and basically sell it around the world. So that's what that's about, new variant assessment platform, which we wanted to. It well, fair enough. Use that around the world. Have you spoken to Dr. Tedros, WHO, about this thing here, the new variant assessment platform? Yes, message, no promises, but I'm trying to land Bill Gates. So this is Damon Poole. This is the Department of Health Media Special Advisor. We have loads of these special advisors in the UK. I don't quite know what they do, but I think they get paid a lot to advise senior politicians. No promises, but I'm trying to land Bill Gates' endorsement of the platform. Matt Hancock, tell him that considering how many people I'm getting his chips injected into, he owes me one. So there's almost an implication here that Bill Gates was gaining financially from the vaccine rollout. But anyway, this was treated as a joke. How many people I'm getting his chips injected? Tell him that considering how many people I'm getting his chips injected into, he owes me one. So that was the joke. Now, many conspiracy theories were said to have been inspired by pro-Kremlin outlets, according to the Telegraph. And in the end, Mr. Gates didn't actually support the British government's rollout of this variant identification program. So there we go. I thought that was quite interesting. Of course, the big implication for the next pandemic, where we could improve, is get better politicians next time. At least more transparent, more open, who gives us the full information, doesn't try and manage what information that us little people are able to cope with, and gives us a truthful, ongoing assessment of the situation. So more transparency required there. In this case, provided retrospectively. And I suspect Mr. Hancock is probably somewhat ruining the day he decided to get his side of the story out so quickly, because a lot of it's now in the, some of the material is in the public domain. So all published in the Telegraph. The problem with Telegraph is actually paywalled, so you'd have to take a subscription out if you want to read it all in detail. But you can, take it out for a few weeks and cancel it, I suppose. Interesting, and I suspect more to come on that. I think that was in the public interest for me to put that out. So I'm pretty sure I will put this online. I think I've only said what is reported in the texts. My overwhelming feeling now, disappointment. Betrayal, certainly disappointment. Extreme disappointment that we weren't given the information at the time to allow us to process it accurately and fully. Thank you for watching.